Hello, everyone. We'd like to begin the question and answer session. Okay. Okay. Question right here.
How do you qualify for advanced standing?
How do you qualify for advanced standing? Advanced standing students have to have an undergraduate degree in social work from an CSWE, that's the Council on Social Work Education, accredited school of social work. And for the University of Pittsburgh, they can have received that undergraduate degree anytime within 7 years before applying for their MSW degree. So they have a 7-year, you have a 7-year window.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I was wondering that GSPIA certificate from the COSA department, is that one that direct practice students are eligible to take, or that's one that's strictly reserved for COSA students?
Do you mean the Human Services Management Certificate?
Perhaps. I wrote GSPIA. I don't know, I copied it off a slide.
GSPIA is the Graduate School of Public and International Affairs, so that fits the initials that you're
Okay.
talking about. We have a dual degree program with GSPIA.
Okay, that's what I was thinking.
Okay, and your question was?
Is that only open for School of Social Work students who are in the COSA line, or is
Yes.
that? Okay.
The curriculum with GSPIA and the COSA curriculum match very nicely together. The direct practice curriculum is not such a great match with GSPIA. So yes, you would need to be a COSA concentration student to do that particular dual degree program. You're welcome.
Yes, sir.
Can you decide to do a dual degree after being admitted, like when you're in the program?
Yes, you can. You can, in fact, decide to do a dual degree after being admitted to the school. In fact, with many of the dual degrees, students will start out at the other school during their first year and then come to the School of Social Work in the second year, or vice versa.
But don't wait too long. If you're interested in a dual degree but you have advanced standing, what does that look like once you start doing it, like in terms of timing and semesters?
I can speak to it with public health. I had maybe extended it a little bit based on some classes that I'm interested in, but having my advanced standing, I can get done in 2.5 years or less. You can do it in 2 straight years if you do summers and things like that. But because my advanced standing took off 18 credits, I was able to just get rid of an entire semester's worth of other things. So I've taken some classes that I'm more interested in that I are extending my time a little bit, but it's very flexible.
But the key thing to know with any dual degree program, it's a savings of time and money. For example, usually a social work degree would be 60 credits. A law degree would be 72 credits. So we're talking about 132 credits if you were to do them separately. With the dual degree program, it's 120 credits. So it's a savings of both time and money. And one of the things to know is that when you have a dual degree, that'll usually prepare you to move into a middle management position much quicker than if you were to obtain just one degree solely.
I'm from New York, so how does it work with licensing after you're done? Do you just go to New York and take your test?
Licensing is different in every state, and there is no reciprocity. So if you are going to return to New York to practice after you complete your MSW degree, you should test in New York. Okay? Also, my suggestion to you would be to look at what New York State's requirements are for curriculum. I happen to know that if there are any Floridians in the room, you must have a class in clinical pathology. Not necessarily required in our curriculum, it's one of a number of choices. But if you're going back to Florida to practice, you must have that class. So check and see if New York has any particular curriculum requirements so that you make sure you take them before you return to your home state.
Okay. Is there any sort of like linkage with the exam, or I'm easily able to find, like, figure out?
I haven't been on New York State's website, but the Pennsylvania website gives you all the information that you need to know what the requirements are for licensure.
Okay.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Is there, like, if you're in the direct practice concentration, is there like an opportunity to get more than one of the certificates, or do you really have to pick just one? And if so, and if you do have to pick just one, can you, like, is there room to take like other classes as electives also?
Really, you can only take one certificate program because your human behavior, your policy, and your advanced electives are particular to your certificate. Your concentration field placement must be in the certificate area of practice. So you cannot do more than one certificate, but you can, if you choose to cut and paste, let's say for instance you're very interested in mental health, but you also want to work with children and families. You do not have to do a certificate. You can combine the curriculums from both programs in a way that makes sense to you and advances your career goals, so you don't have to do a certificate. You may want to individualize your program and kind of integrate two different curriculums because that suits your needs. There are 6 credits, 2 classes essentially of general elective credit. So let's say you choose the mental health curriculum, but you want some classes in children and families. You could use that 6 credits to take classes particularly in another certificate, children and families, or whatever it is that interests you. You can even take it in a different school within the university, as long as it's a graduate class within the university, or even with our neighboring partners, in order to advance your education. If you have a particular area of interest that is not covered by our curriculum, that's a nice way for you to use 6 credits worth to go somewhere else and learn about something particular to your interest.
If you don't get that certificate, like for instance school social work, and then you later decide that's something you want to do, would you run into a problem getting certified? How would you go about that?
I was for a very brief period of time the interim HSMV coordinator, so I will attempt to answer your questions. Specific to home and school visitor, you must take all of the classes that are outlined in that particular certificate before you can apply for HSMV. You can, however, let's say you go through and get a regular MSW and you decide, oh my gosh, I really wanted to do HSMV. You can do it as a postmaster's program. It actually is a 66 credit master's instead of a 60 credit master's. But one thing to keep in mind, if that is an area of interest for you, but you're not 100% sure if you want to commit to that pretty intensive HSMV curriculum, you do need to have your second field placement in a school. So make sure you get those concentration hours of field in a school setting. Some of the other, what was your original question? Sorry, I digress.
If you were not to get that certificate and then later on in your career you realized you wanted
You'd have to come back and get the.
And how many credits would that be that you would need?
It's the extra. It's the extra 6 credits, but I think we have to look at how we. There are 4 classes.
Okay.
Actually, you're right, because it's 2. Your 2 general electives get eaten up. Not eaten up. Are able to be utilized. It must be lunchtime. Are able to be utilized to meet the curriculum standards for HSMV, and then you take 6 additional, because it's all out of the school of ed. But we'd also want to look at where did you do your field placement. If you were at, for example, the YMCA and then at the VA, how is that going to support that you've had training, for example, in the school setting? So.
I'm kind of sort of the same situation.
Right. That's just. Oh, sorry. I'm coming back. That's just for that certificate, because that one's very, very specific, because it's a combination of the School of Social Work and the Graduate School of Education. Okay, I'm done now.
I was going to say I'm kind of sort of in the same situation as Ben. I currently work at the VA doing case management and drug and alcohol. And I was wondering if I could do a field placement in my current position, or would it have to be another aspect of the VA, or how would that work?
Is that I'm sorry. that specific to gerontology, or you're just
No.
asking a general?
Just asking a general question.
Okay, are you asking if you can do a field placement at the VA even though you work there?
Yes.
Yes, you can, but there's a specific request for field placement form if you want to do an employment-based field placement, and there can, of the 2 placements, it can only be one of the 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
You can't count your current work as field work.
Right, okay, thank you.
Yes.
I should know that. Yeah, your field placement can be at your place of employment, but it must be a totally different job or
Okay.
function with a totally different supervisor.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Okay, all right.
I have a question for the current students. If you could describe a little bit the culture with your fellow students and sort of how well you work together or how well you know each other. What is that like?
Okay. Well, for me, I mean, there's kind of, you have different, I guess, sets of friends like you would anywhere, or peers. For me particularly, I'm in a scholarship program here. It's a minority scholarship, so I have those set of students that we are able to connect and do things together because we all have that connection through that scholarship. And then I have my COSA peers, and I would say that we all connect pretty well. I mean, we all pretty much take the same courses. We see each other as we progress in our MSW career. So I do believe that we all connect pretty well. We try to talk with each other, see what's going on at one another's field placements, and how each other's experiences are going, because we can learn from each other. And so I do think that we work well together as peers.
I would say also, as I mentioned, I'm all about being proactive. So I think that you have the opportunity to sit in your classes and not connect with people. You have to work in groups. To some extent, you do have to talk to people, but it's really easy when we have other jobs and we have other things going on to come to class, do our work, and then go home. But you can connect with people. Definitely people are friendly, and get involved in organizations, and that's an even better way, because then you really create bonds with people. So get involved in something, and that looks great on a resume too, and when you're asking people for letters of recommendation later. I think that that's the best way to connect.
And lastly, I would also say that, you know, working, when you're operating in the classroom environment, you got to remember that everyone else is coming from a different, maybe coming from a different perspective. You know, you maybe have, if you're taking like the generalist class in the first year, maybe someone from COSA, someone from direct practice. But I think the important thing to know is that when you're having those discussions, those open discussions with the class, you know, you're getting a better understanding of what the profession's about, how different individuals operate in different capacities. Because what may be true for one person in direct practice may be different for someone else in COSA. So you got to keep in mind like the overall picture, what works for you, and then you learn from that. And it's important because not everyone's always going to agree. Not everyone's going to come from the same perspective, but you can at least agree on some things in terms of the field. So.
I have 2 questions. The first is regarding advanced standing. Is there the potential to begin it in the fall and be done the following summer, like within a calendar year? I know some schools offer that. Or do you have the summer off?
So if you are a direct practice student who maybe is not doing a certificate, you might be able to accomplish that. I can't guarantee that. The program is really built to be done in 3 full-time semesters. I do have students with advanced planning, and because of the courses they have selected, can do that. And they finish within 12 months. I do not run very many courses in the summer. The summer classes are built for part-time students. They're all in the evening, and full-time students are paying the per credit rate during the summer. There is no full-time rate. So it's costly, but it's possible for some students because of their life responsibilities. They opt to do their full 3 semesters, the 3rd in the summer, and they've planned out their curriculum so that in the in the summer, they have weighted to take what I offer in the summer because there are limited courses offered in the summer. So if you're direct practice, I don't think I've ever figured it out if COSA can manage to do that in the 11 months. But because I don't run very much in COSA during the summer, but I know direct practice students can do it because I've had a few. It just requires a lot of advanced planning.
Okay. And then my second question is, are there assistantships within the department?
There are a limited number of assistantships. The majority of them would be research assistantships that faculty decide which students are to receive. So those assistantships generally go to students who are currently in the program that faculty already know. They know how well they perform or have performed in their classes, and they may offer those students a particular assistantship. But the majority of our students receive scholarship, not assistantships.
Traditionally, how do scholarships work, and how does the package look for the merit scholarships?
Okay. Our scholarship packages are all merit-based. They're all merit-based. There are no need-based scholarships. And we award them basically on a matrix formula. For example, your name is? Zach. It's not like Philip Max says, Zach, you're going to get a $5,000 scholarship. It doesn't work that way. We have an elaborate spreadsheet, and you get points based on certain variables. For example, your GPA will make up, I'd say, probably about 65% of that scholarship formula. But we also look at your years of paid work experience in your field, the quality of your references. Believe it or not, references, we can actually rank and rate your references because they check off certain boxes on that form. And we look at those forms, and basically they're saying that you're either excellent, very good, good, fair, or poor. And based on that score, we will the matrix system will determine your points. You can get bonus points if you work for the Peace Corps, AmeriCorps, Vista, City Year, or have been a Ronald McNair Scholar. If you're accepted into a dual degree program, you'll get bonus points. And there might be one or two other factors, and you'll get points for that. And that's how your scholarship is determined. The one thing is also that once your scholarship is awarded, that award will go with you throughout your tenure here at the school. So in your second year, you do not have to reapply for your scholarship. So I'm just saying, hypothetically, if you were to receive $6,000 in your first year, that means that you'll get $3,000 for each of your 4 semesters at the school.
For the scholarship, that you said if you do the early admission requirements and you get accepted contingent on all of those things, and then you would be guaranteed a certain amount of scholarship. When do you find that out? Is it always the same amount for that?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Once you receive your scholarship award, that scholarship will stay with you through your three semesters if you're advanced standing, or your 4 semesters if you are in the regular 60 credit program. For those who complete their application by our priority deadline of December 31st, you will receive your scholarship notification on or before February 15th, 2013.
I've got a question about the statistics requirement. Does it have to be an explicitly statistics or mathematics class, or could it be sociology or psychology that uses a lot of statistics methods?
It has to be a stat class, but what I'm saying is I've seen courses that have been identified as psychological stats. That's good. It can be sociological stats. It can be probability. It can be quantitative methods, but it must be at least a minimum of 3 credits. No.
How long does it typically take a part-time student to finish the program?
10 part-time students for the regular 60 credit masters is 10 consecutive semesters or 3.5 years.
I saw on the website that some students like to do an MSW and a PhD. How long that, when you would have to decide?
If you look on the website, what it says, it's a MSW, it's a joint MSW PhD, but you have to already have a master's degree in another area outside or on the periphery of social work. So I would be talking about something like psychology, mental health, marriage and family counseling, okay? So it's not that you can come into a master's degree of social work program and make that decision just immediately to go into a PhD program. One thing, just to give you some background, the difference. Last year we accepted 252 students enrolled into our MSW program. Each year, we only plan to take 6 students into our PhD program each year, only 6. Those 6 students are fully funded, tuition and living expense, all 4 years guaranteed. But the competition for the PhD program is far greater than those who are looking to come into the master's degree program.
Are there any curriculum changes that are expected to go into effect starting fall of 2013? My class would be sort of testing out.
I've been doing this for 20 years. That's the first time I've ever heard that question.
Wow. Who knows? Yeah, that is a good question. We have been, as Mr. Mack mentioned earlier in the program, we recently were reaccredited in June of 2012. And so, of course, everything had to stay the way it was until we got through our self-study and our reaccreditation. So we all took a deep breath, and now we are looking at, you know, what do we want to do? How do we want to change things? Do we want to add some curriculum? We are working to really increase our depth in our healthcare specialization. We will be, is it public knowledge yet? We will be bringing on some faculty with a healthcare specialization, which will help us offer more courses in the healthcare specialization. So we are looking to bring some more depth to that curriculum. We're talking about, but I don't know when this will happen, adding a course or 2 on working with veterans. In southwestern Pennsylvania, we have a very large concentration of veterans here, and some social work programs are really focusing on returning veterans and providing services, so we're considering adding some coursework that would train our students to be have some more knowledge and skill in regard to working with veteran populations. Of course, we have military folk within our program who are training to work with their fellow colleagues, but at this point we don't have curriculum specific to working with veterans, so that is something that we're looking at. But whether it'll be up and ready for next year, not sure.
Has anyone ever done a field placement internationally, like for a whole semester?
Go, Mick.
I can think of one. It does require a lot of organization. We've actually had students do it in other states, and someone trying to develop one in Australia. But it would require that field instructor over there do certain things, certainly not fly here and go to a field instructor orientation, but you know, complete certain things like online or whatever. So I'm not saying it's impossible, but it is very rare.
I was actually going to ask about that as well. Is that something that the student would have to be proactive in finding a placement? Because I'm actually going to South Africa next semester for my bachelor's, and I was interested in doing something similar for my master's degree. How would that work as far as?
I think you should start talking to us really soon. So we can. So right after you're accepted, yeah. So we can help guide you, because typically we say no, students, please do not find your own field placement. Because you know we have a procedure, but again that would be an exception where we would want you to, but guide you as to what would qualify as an acceptable placement. That's really exciting, by the way.
I know, very
Yeah.
I have a question for the students. Someone mentioned earlier the advantages of the career services in this school, and that they potentially can even help you find part-time work while you're completing as a full-time is what I'm looking at. Is that something that was manageable? Did anyone have to work while they were going to school, and how did you manage that?
I actually just started working part-time at the admissions office, and so that's helpful. It's something to supplement income. It's manageable. I don't know how much balancing you can do. I'm doing probably, it ends up to be maybe like 15 to 20 hours a week of paid things between the admissions office and some other things. And it's a lot of juggling, but I'm still alive. I'm doing it. And as long as you feel like you can handle your coursework, I think that you'll be okay.
Ladies first.
Well, while I was in Idaho, actually, I was doing full-time internship, 24 hours per week, my schoolwork, as well as working a part-time job. And so, like Megan said, it is manageable. It is time-consuming, but you have to make ends meet. And so what you have to do is really, like she said, time management, just knowing what you can handle, being able to establish good rapport with your supervisors and with your field instructors, and kind of letting them know what's going on, you know, in your life, so that they understand that you have all of this going on, and they may be more willing to work with you if other things come up. You know, we have doctor's appointments and different things that go on that also are added onto that schedule. But it is manageable. So.
I feel like every time I get up here, I'm about to sing something. No, I'm just kidding. I've had that experience. I worked up at, like I was saying earlier, at Western Psych here at UPMC, and I was on a study, and I was also doing my field placement there, my first year field placement, as you were asking about earlier, ma'am, about the, you know, can you do both, you know, in the same area? And you can. It's just, you gotta realize it's very difficult. I mean, I was working 24, 25, so many numbers in my head. Like, I was working a lot of hours a week while working to make sure that I got all my field hours for the week, like the 20 hours that were required. And it only gets harder going into your second year field placement. So you just got to keep that in mind, that where you do full time in one area, you may have to sacrifice a bit in the other, and vice versa. So if you're going to do full time in your schoolwork and in this master's program, you may have to give up a few hours. It's just a sacrifice that you have to make. So you just got to be prepared to do that. And even working on weekends, yeah, you can do that. But just remember that you have all those course deadlines that you have to make and stuff like that. So you got to be realistic about it. So I hope that answered your question. At least that's how I experienced it. So I hope it works out for you.
Many of our full-time students are working part-time jobs, but the one thing that I can tell you that is impossible, it is impossible to go full-time to this program and work a full-time job. If you're going full-time, you can do part-time work, but not full-time work.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about the advanced standing. Is it possible to go part-time? And would that be afternoon or evening classes, or is that
Yes, you can do advanced standing part-time. So it depends on whether you're COSA or direct practice. I know I said that before. As you heard in the beginning, I have a lot of students in direct practice. So I have more evening courses in direct practice because I have more students and more need. There are evening courses in COSA. 100%, I couldn't guarantee you that 100% of your courses would be in the evening. It would depend on whether you were CO and SA and which electives you want. Some of the electives are only offered once a year. They're only offered one particular day and time. So you would need some flexibility with your work schedule.
For the field education for full-time students, those go into the summer for the foundational period, and if not, what kinds of things do your peers do during the summer full-time students?
Well, all students who are doing field ed, you take field education concurrently with your coursework. So it's fall, spring, fall, spring. Many of our students are doing, well, like all other students, they're finding other types of employment opportunities during the summer. In fact, what did each of you do during the summer?
Well, to be honest, I actually was able, my name tag, sorry. I actually was able to complete it. I had to go through get some special instruction, but to actually complete my field placement throughout the summer. So it started, because it took me a little bit longer because I had a different type of structured field placement. I did a lot of work from home. I also did, this was more so a lot of social advocacy type of things, so meeting with legislators and that kind of thing. And so a lot of stuff was done on the computer and that kind of thing. I didn't necessarily always have to go into an office. So it was harder to do that 24 hours a week type of thing. And so with proper instruction, I was able to continue that as long as I completed it throughout the summer. So what happened is I received an incomplete until I completed my hours. Now, I don't know if that works for everybody. That was a special, unique situation. But I do believe that if you get the special instructions, that the faculty and staff will accommodate you as long as you're doing what you're supposed to do.
So after my first year, I had to look for another place for my field placement, and I didn't continue. After I completed my field placement, shall I say, for my first year, that was at the end of my spring semester. So then I started looking at the other areas, and then I had my field supervisors who are great here, and they were saying, well, you should look at applying to the VA. So I got that rolling throughout the summer, and because of the paperwork and everything, I had to get that taken care of. And then eventually I started my work at the VA in August. But between that time period over the summer, I was working at my job where I was before while taking summer courses.
I'm in the process of figuring this out right now. So there are opportunities that you can take advantage of that are a little bit more academic. I'm thinking about applying to the Bridging the Gaps program, which is funded for 12 weeks, something like that, over the summer, and then you work with an organization and implement a program, and they kind of help structure this for you. But also looking into the opportunity for other internships as well, and you can talk to career services, talk to your advisor, and they will help you to identify some internships and things like that, if that's what you're interested in doing.
Occasionally, if you're really lucky, your foundation field placement after you complete your hours might hire you for the summer. Of course, that is based on need and money, but it happens. They are familiar with you. You understand the agency. They know what your skill level is at that point. So if they can use some extra help and have the money to pay, oftentimes they'll do that because you're a known commodity and you can just continue on, but not as a student, as a paid employee for the summer. Again, those are rare opportunities, but they happen on occasion. Mm-hmm.
So are there paid field placements during the year?
Yes, there are a very limited number of paid field placement opportunities. I mean, we do have several, but again, I'd always like to paraphrase that by saying there are a limited number of paid field placement opportunities here at the school.
I had a question about electives. Are the same ones offered at both or all three of the campuses, or are there different ones that might be at the Bradford one? And if you're here at the main campus, can you take one at that campus, or how does that work?
So I mentioned earlier that Johnstown campus has the mental health certificate. So their electives are in the mental health, approved mental health electives. They use the same curriculum that we use here, and Bradford uses the Children, Youth, and Family curriculum. I do have a student who lives in Johnstown but does not want to do the part-time program. He's coming here to do the full-time program, but we are going to allow him this spring semester to take one course in Johnstown. This is logistically a little bit complicated for us, but we have all the approvals in place and it'll be fine. So you can do that. Johnstown is 2 hours away from us. Bradford is 3.5 hours away. My main campus students that inadvertently register for the wrong campus don't really want to make that kind of commute for a class, but we do have students that live, it's usually the Johnstown students that maybe live in Johnstown or near where you can do that. There's no flexibility or choice with when they're offered in Johnstown. Remember, it's a cohort program. So, you know, that curriculum is fixed. But if you happen to live in that area, we can work that out as long as everyone knows what you're doing, including my coordinator in Johnstown, because all of a sudden she's going to have someone she doesn't know in her class. But we can make that work.
I'm sorry, I was going to ask, did you say there were scholarships for part-time students as well?
No, unfortunately, there's no scholarship funding for part-time students.
Is there opportunities or flexibility with taking classes online?
Currently, we have no classes online.
If a student comes in without a car, are there disadvantages? Or are you more limited with your field placement, or can you get by without a car?
In direct practice, I think is harder, at least as an undergrad, the relation.
Yeah, we still have PAT Transit, and your student ID allows you to ride for free. There is when you apply for your field placement, you write on there whether you have a car available or whether you need to take public transportation. The field advisors, then if you identify that you have to take public transportation, they will keep that in mind when they match you up with a setting so that they are certain that there's a bus stop, you know, really close to your agency. And if you're within the city limits, there are many bus stops. I mean, that's not really a difficult thing to arrange in terms of your field placement. Our international students generally do not come here with a car, so or a lot of our out-of-state students. So we make sure they get apartments on bus lines, and their field placements are on bus lines.
Any more questions?
Just have one. I know with the 3.3 implied by the priority deadline, you're guaranteed admission. If your GPA isn't quite up there, what is, should you still like, what's the cutoff as far as like, I mean, I should still try applying kind of thing? Or what could you do to make your application more well-rounded to consider for that?
I would encourage all of you to apply. I mean, if you're interested in going to graduate school of social work, yes. Each year we accept many students whose GPA is less than 3.0. In fact, this year I think we accepted about approximately I'd say about 25 students whose GPA was less than 3.0. They're classified as provisional students. The one thing that I can say about that group, the majority of them have at least paid work experience in the field of social work. And many of them turn out to be some of our better students at the school. They've been working in the profession for several years, and they have a wealth of experience in the field. So I would encourage, if you're really interested in getting an MSW, to go ahead and apply to the school. Your second question was?
That was it.
That was it, okay.
I'm sorry, I want to go back to working full-time and going to school full-time.
Impossible. You cannot work full-time and go to school full-time. It's impossible. Let's figure it out. You're working how many hours a week? How many?
40.
Okay, in your second year, you're going to do a 24-hour-a-week practicum. You're working 40 hours a week. You're going to do a 24-hour-a-week practicum, and then you're going to take a full-time load as a student. Cannot be done. I've been director of admissions for 20 years. I've never seen it done, okay? Impossible. Think about graduate school this way. It is a marathon, not a sprint. If you're interested in getting a graduate degree, it's not about how fast you finish, it is about finishing, you know. So if it takes 2 years to get a degree full-time, but 3.5 years to get it part-time, you're still going to come out with the same degree. And if you're working full-time, you're going to have a full-time salary. There are certain benefits to working that students who are going to school full-time will not have. But it may take you longer to obtain that graduate degree, but it's definitely not a disadvantage.
Philip, your slide about cost mentioned loan forgiveness. Can you talk about that a little bit?
My slide about loan forgiveness. There are certain programs out there about loan forgiveness, and I would encourage all of you to do your due diligence about that. What I mean by that is certain states have loan forgiveness. For example, I know within the state of New Jersey, they have a loan forgiveness program, I think if you're working with child welfare, but you have to do a certain amount of years of either public sector work. When I talk about public sector, I'm talking about within the city, county, state, or federal government. They have a loan forgiveness program. One of the things that President Bush did when he was president, I don't know if you recall, but again, if you're involved doing public service work, again, public service is when you're working for the government, either on a city, county, state, or federal government, that after your 10th year of employment within public service, the loan forgiveness kicks in. So I mean, that means, yes, you're going to be repaying your loan for 10 years, but in that 11th year, whatever the balance of your loan is, that is then forgiven. And there are other things in place right now that I know that NASW is working on. That's the National Association of Social Workers for social workers, and there are other things that are out there. But that's something that you would need to investigate yourselves. I would encourage that. So.
If you apply and are accepted and then realize like your financial situation doesn't work out or something like that, would that affect your future if you apply again?
In fact, you can defer your admission. Many students do that. If you're accepted, let's say we accept you for this year, for the fall of 2013, but for whatever reason, financial, other sorts of hardships may occur, you can defer your enrollment into our program for 1 year and choose to come in 2014. Now, if you wait 2 years, you would have to submit a new application.
If you do apply by December 31st, would you expect to go back by February 15th as well, or would it be earlier?
If you meet the priority deadline and have a GPA of 3.3 or greater, and that's for everyone, when it comes to just the admissions decision, generally you're going to hear from us within about 2 weeks. Once your application is completed, you'll generally hear from us within 2 weeks. But for that scholarship piece, only the scholarship piece, if you meet the priority deadline, you will get, it's 2 separate communications. You can complete your application now. You'll get your acceptance letter probably within 10 or 14 days after you complete the application. But the scholarship letter, you'll receive that by February 15th. Okay, we have time for maybe 1 or 2 more questions. Going once.
Sorry, what percentage of students coming in have a BSW or ish, and what percentage-ish have work experience between undergrad and?
Again, we admitted 252 students this year. I would say, I think about 65 to 70 of them were BSW coming into the advanced standing program. In terms of work experience, I'd say about 80% of our students do have some type of work experience, okay? Many of them are coming directly from college, but they've still worked part-time. And if they're BSW students, that means they have a year already of paid work, a year of field practicum experience from their undergraduate institution, okay? Again, going once, twice, 3 times. Well, thanks everyone for coming out this Saturday to our MSW Information Session. I hope that you found this session informative to you, and I look forward to receiving the majority of your applications across my desk at some point in time. Again, thank you. Thank you for coming out.